All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. It is lovely to be with you. And I am overwhelmed on a Friday by the bounty that is this show. Albert is here. You can see
Albert,
him
thank
there.
you.
Those of you who are watching on YouTube, we are live right now. Kim is there. You can see her.
Kim, how are you?
We are a live 2-hour show, 2-hour-ish. You typically go a little bit longer. And we came out of the world of the Bay Area, which is getting pounded by rain this morning, on top of the pounding by rain that they took yesterday. It's getting pretty brutal, and we have some listener firsthand accounts of how things are getting bad. It's not only rain, it is snow. It is a blast across much of the northern part of the state. If you're watching in Southern California, I guess it'll be more of a kind of pleasant, much needed first rain of the season. And if you're watching in other parts of the country, winter has begun to emerge. It is almost Thanksgiving. We got a lot to do. And I'll tell you that on Thanksgiving, the show will be dark.
What?
I know. No show on Thanksgiving or Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving.
What?
I know. Well, everybody, I will be traveling back to see Mom. First Thanksgiving for her without Dad. First Thanksgiving for all of us without Dad. And we'll be doing that. There it is, programming note, Dark Thanksgiving and Black Friday. Yeah. Dark Thanksgiving and Black Friday does sound like some kind of prediction for something awful. Don't know if I would have phrased it right like that, but look, the important thing is, yeah, there's no show on Thanksgiving and Friday. But what I was going to say is that I'll be going back to the East Coast to be with her and with family, and still will do shows on, there'll be shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday leading up to Thanksgiving. So it'll only be Thursday and Friday, and then I'll scamper back to the West Coast, and we will be at full strength to start the new week after Thanksgiving as well. So, and Albert, you'll be with me that Wednesday, right? The day before Thanksgiving.
Yes,
yeah?
I will be there.
Okay, cool. All right. There's a lot to get to. I've got a lot of email. I've got a lot of comments I want to get to.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
I want to get to all of that. In fact, the first thing I'd like to get to is both email and weather related. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, Mark, from George in Dunsmuir. Now, Dunsmuir is in Northern California. Kim can tell you exactly where Dunsmuir is.
Kind of Mount Lassen area, not too far from Redding.
You were talking yesterday, says George, about the crazy weather in Northern California. Here's an example of the beauty of the snow and the damage it can cause. We have, there it is, the snow, but you can see it brought down
a tree.
That tree.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can happen, especially with the first snows or the first substantial snows of a season, because they're wetter snows, they're heavier snows. But look at this.
Wow.
First, my 5 a.m. walk Wednesday in Dunsmuir in a slow-motion view of downtown as the beautiful snow fell, he said. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. And if you're not, I'll just tell you it's a gorgeous kind of small-town scene, meaning you're looking down a street that is clearly, you know, a small-town street, movie theater in the foreground, and a layer of snow covering everything. Then later that day, that tree in my yard collapsed, partially hitting 2 dormers on my roof and covering my small lawn in tree debris. So far, no evidence of leaks as I work with the insurance company and look for contractors to remove the trees and check the roof. Because the temperatures are right at or above freezing during the snow. It was a very, very heavy snow. That's what I was saying, which caused about 5 trees in Dunsmuir to either completely fall or break in half, as my tree did. That's the word from George in Dunsmuir. And thank you, George, for getting in touch and for sharing some of that stuff with us. The atmospheric river, as it's called, caused problems at SFO. Kim was telling me that the traffic at SFO was wildly affected. Isn't that right, Kim?
Yeah, huge delays at SFO. It just was, coming down, buckets, rainy, windy, horrible. Over 100 flights delayed and canceled at San Francisco International Airport because of the weather yesterday.
Yeah.
They had the ground delay. The FAA put in the ground delay in. I expect from what I'm hearing outside my house right now, I bet there's more delays today.
It is biblical rain, apocalyptic rain, rain that you've only heard about, read about. We're living it now. Kim is our first-hand reporter on the scene.
That's right.
And if there's anything more on this weather situation, you will break in and tell me about it. But don't break in when I'm in the middle of one of my rants. Don't break in right now like Albert just did. You have to be strategic about breaking in.
Mm-hmm.
My God, man, how many times do we have to go through this?
Albert, thank you.
All right.
Why are you yelling?
Go ahead, Albert. What is the point you were trying to make, sir?
Oh, it's a Thursday night football. Last night started like this.
Yes.
And then it ended like this also.
It was an unreal game. I really thought, and I don't know if you agree with me, Kamish, but I really thought the Steelers were going to win that game.
Yeah, the Steelers, notoriously always played down to their competition, and they did last night. But it was a very, this is a drastic difference. This is how the first quarter and a half looked like.
Do they cancel the game when that happens, or do they play in that snow?
Oh, they played, baby. They played.
They play, yeah. It's the end. Yeah. Pure entertainment. It's like watching kids play.
Yeah. It is true that during the game, because of the snow that you're seeing on screen, again, for those just listening, we're showing you a scene from last night's ball game in which you could barely see. I mean, the snow was almost a whiteout. At times, you couldn't even see the action on the field, or barely could see it. It is true that during the game, they're shoveling snow off the field so you could see the yard markers and, the sideline markers. It's wild.
It looks dangerous.
It's, I think it looks kind of, as Albert said, kind of like schoolyardish, It was fun to see. I mean, it's picturesque, but anyway, that was the story last. Yeah, so the weather is definitely getting cranked up for this holiday week that's ahead. And The
Mark Thompson Show.
Also wanted to mention some other things that were coming in. I got, first of all, before I get to anything else, I'd like to recognize a couple of new Patreon subscribers. Always happy to see that people are picking up the mantle of Patreon. Rick became a $20 member on Patreon. We say member.
Big shout out.
Community of people on Patreon and PayPal. You can pick either. They're hot links underneath this video and underneath all videos on YouTube, or you can just go to our website, themarkthompsonshow.com, themarkthompsonshow.com, and you can find there everything that you need. Carol, a $25 Patreon supporter now, brand new. How about a shout out to Carol?
Big shout out.
Yeah.
Yay.
Carol with an E. I love Carol with an E. Yeah. So Rick and Carol. And then Heidi, I don't know if I mentioned her yesterday. I think I did, but I'll mention her again. $25 to $30. Yeah, big shout out.
Big shout out.
Eric. How about that Eric Ingram? $10.
Big shout
Love
out.
it. In the Patreon world, that is so cool. That lets us know month to month you'll have this coming in and we can meet payroll that way. Don't want to skip anybody. Loretta. How about it? Loretta joined our Patreon
Big
community.
shout out.
Wow. Loretta, big shout out. Thank you so much, guys. It really is the way we stay on the air. So to Linda, to Sean, who also joined, I believe I gave him a shout earlier, but let me give him another
Big
shout in
out.
case I haven't. He joined on the 19th, and those who are a big part of things through Patreon and PayPal, so do appreciate it. If I've skipped anybody, I'll go back through and go, oh my God, I can't believe I skipped that person, and I'll feel bad about it all weekend, and then I'll do it on Monday. But I'll also go through the PayPal ranks and see if there's anybody I should mention, and I will do that as well on Monday. But thank you, everyone who's made contributions to the show, super stickers, super chats, however you support us, it really is appreciated. But obviously, Patreon and PayPal let us look at a pool of money and meet payroll every month. So our costs are not insubstantial, and I really do appreciate the support. So thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now, the other thing that was going on is that I did get many emails, and before I get to them, is there anything else, Kim, I need to,
Yeah,
some of the stuff's about, yeah, go
I
ahead.
want to address this because there's this micro Kimmy, hello you, who says, I really want to see what he thinks. I've super chatted 3 times and he keeps missing it. We actually did put your super chat up yesterday, micro Kimmy. We did have it, but she's super chatted it again. It's wanting to let you know that she feels that you look like Art Bell.
Well, I remind her of Art Bell. I don't know what Art Bell looked like because he's on the radio.
Yeah.
But we actually read it and talked about it, didn't we?
Yeah, we did yesterday.
Yeah, it was. What I said yesterday, I'll say it again just quickly, is that I could see how you would find my voice similar to Art Bell's. You know, he had that sort of way of talking, Art Bell, late night, and the UFO portfolio and files on UFO phenomenon that the government has is something that we should all have an interest in. And for some reason, we're not seeing that's kind of the way he spoke. Mark resembles Gary Owens, not Art Bell. Gary Owens talk like that. Mark, how are you? I used to see Gary Owens at the voiceover auditions I would do. So I'd go into ICM, which is a big agency in Los Angeles, and I'd see Gary Owens, and Gary always had a blazer on. That's what I loved about Gary Owens, and he always had a show business story. Mark, did I ever tell you about the time Smokey Robinson and I were having lunch at the Hamburger Hamlet on Sunset Boulevard? You know? Yeah, I know that place. We went in, and there I saw Sonny Bono. And he had this girl with him. She couldn't have been more than 16 or 17 years old. And that was Cher. And I met Cher with Sonny that day at the Hamburger Hamlet. I love stuff like that. That was like that was the greatest dream, being at ICM, talking to Gary Owens, talking to these other great voices and personalities that I'd always seen. Mark Hamill was there. Roddy McDowell was there. We're all just sitting there waiting to get. Now, let me tell you, Mark Hamill and Roddy McDowell don't need to wait as long to get into the audition booth as I do. But it was really fun. But that's that I can see the Gary Owens. He was really over the top with the way he sounded. I can see the Art Bell thing also. Vivian says, aloha from Maui, where we're living in 80-degree. Oh, we're leaving 80-degree weather for the atmospheric river in San Francisco. Yeah, bad timing, Vivian. Thank you for the super chat.
Got out of a little bit of it though, Vivian.
Hey, before I get into politics and some of the other stuff, although I know I've already digressed a little bit, thank you for all the ways you participate. These are all what you're hearing are different comments that are coming in on our live chat. You can join the live chat, or you can just leave comments after the fact, and I'll get to some of the comments after the fact. We read all of them, and I'd love to respond to a couple. But there was a weird story that Kim actually found. Kim populates our show with all kinds of interesting stuff that typically we don't get to. But this is one of the great stories she found. A Wisconsin kayaker who was thought to be lost. What, drowned? Isn't that what they thought had happened to this guy?
They dragged the river for him. They spent days and days and days looking for Ryan Borgwart.
Yeah.
And
well,
at
then
great
they thought,
expense.
44 years old, they thought he was done, right? It was the summer. He didn't come home from this fishing trip on Green Lake, about an hour north of his home in Watertown, Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And it was 7 weeks they spent looking for him, as Kim says. They were looking everywhere for this guy. And they finally said, hey, this guy's gone. He's missing. We haven't been able to find his body, but he's clearly not around anymore. So his wife and his kid, he had 2 kids or 1 kid?
I think 2, at least.
Wife and his family left behind.
Yeah.
They took out a $375,000 life insurance policy. That should have given people maybe a tip that, I don't know, although they looked everywhere. Anyway, this massive search went down. It was emotionally taxing, they say, very costly. And then they find out that he is alive.
3 children, by the way. Wife
3
and 3
kids.
Yeah.
He left the wife and 3 kids to go party in Eastern Europe.
What?
I know.
He made his way from Wisconsin into Canada, and from there on to Europe. He just decided to leave his old life behind, faking the death.
Wow.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Well, you can see him there smiling. We have a shot of him there. He transferred funds, they realized, again, after significant investigation. He transferred funds to a foreign bank account, changed his email, communicated with a woman in Uzbekistan, according to investigators. And
girl, you just woo.
Yeah, I'm sure there was some wooing going on. And his family says they want him to return home. Officials have been begging him to come back to the U.S. Christmas is coming, and what better gift could he give his kids but to be there for Christmas with them, said one person.
I mean, they thought Daddy bought the farm in the river. They thought that was it.
Yeah.
Turns out Daddy's living the high life in Europe.
Yeah, just saying. I make him a long shot to come home, guys. I'm sorry about that. I just saying that just kind of...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Anyway,
now, Sheriff wants $40,000 for all the time and money they spent trying to look for this guy.
Damn straight, yeah. Break off some of that insurance money and send it our way. I mean, it is tough. You know, he's left behind a wife and 3 kids. That's not easy. I mean, what's she supposed to do? So they are going after him on charges, as you might imagine, of one sort or another. But he's in Eastern Europe. I don't know that they'll ever be in Uzbekistan. Good luck getting him to come home and face the music in any kind of significant way.
Sheriff went all Grady on him and said he picked the wrong sheriff and the wrong department.
What he's got going here is a situation.
Yeah, he's got a situation going. All right, so... there is a lot going on, as you know.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Okay. As you know, the next up in the Donald Trump world of nominations and for populating his cabinet is Pete Hegseth. I mean, I say next up because he's probably the most controversial. I suspect that I'll just make this point, and we'll talk about it more with Michael Shure, that losing Matt Gaetz kind of puts the spotlight on Pete Hegseth. In a way, Matt Gaetz was the best thing to happen to Pete Hegseth because Matt Gaetz was such a train wreck, not liked by virtually anyone on Capitol Hill. Clearly, it would seem, based on any number of elements and evidence that was brought to bear in investigations involved with women who he was Venmoing, and I think the Venmo trail really pretty much did him in. He may be involved with, repeatedly involved with underage women, et cetera. So all of that, it DQ'd Matt Gaetz, and now Pete Hegseth and his sexual assault allegations, they become more into the light. And they also, I think, when scrutinized, if you have to actually look at the police report, et cetera, they become more damning, you know. So we'll talk more about it with Michael Shure, but all I'd say is the net loser in the Matt Gaetz thing, besides Matt Gaetz, who obviously wanted to be Attorney General, is Pete Hegseth, because now it's a question of the sexual assault allegations. And the only other thing I will say on this quickly is it's remarkable to me that someone who is manifestly unqualified to handle the agency to which he's been nominated, the Department of Defense, this guy, again, served in the military, but he has no background in terms of managing a big organization. He'd have to manage an organization of almost 3 million people. This is a guy who was a weekend anchor on Fox News. I get it, you know, the jagged jawline and the anchorman thing, and he's glib and he's a big Trump supporter, but there's really not a lot of talk about his incompetence. There's more talk, and the thing that really cuts through in America is sex. Honestly, it's remarkable to me. It's insane that the number of Congress people, senators specifically, who are ready to close ranks and support Trump's pick is substantial until the sex thing. And then all of a sudden, well, they start to swim away. I mean, Matt Gaetz, you could have objected to Matt Gaetz on grounds of competence. You didn't have to get to the sex thing. But the sex thing is the thing that America responds to, and it does seem to sort of carry weight here. Anyway, we'll talk about that more.
America didn't really respond to the sex thing at the polls, did they?
No, they didn't. And it's a weird thing that you've got a president who, clearly president-elect, you know, he's an adjudicated sexual assaulter, and you end up with everybody looking the other way on that. I mean, you've got busloads of women, really, like, you know what, north of 70 women who've claimed groping and all the rest that happened.
Yeah,
so
crazy.
But it just doesn't matter. Hey, by the way, this is interesting. I like this, and this is politics adjacent, and then I'll get into some of these comments and the letter, and I'll talk about the election. Dana White, who was a quasi-permanent fixture on Donald Trump's campaign trail, you know, he became this guy. You know, Dana White runs the UFC. He's the UFC president. Very close to Donald Trump. You see Donald Trump at these UFC events, and he, on the campaign trail, was with Donald Trump a lot of the way. He says he wants no part of politics. I'm never effing doing this again, he said. I want nothing to do with this S. It's gross. It's disgusting. I want nothing to do with politics. He said that again. He talked about it being corrupt and it being a cesspool. He was so disparaging in the way he talked about politics, so as to say, I want nothing to do with it ever again. And that makes you realize, I mean, this is a guy who regularly is around some pretty ugly stuff at the UFC. But he says, I want nothing more to do with politics or with the world of trying to win anyone any political seat. Yeah. That's Dana White. So in the light of day, when the dust settles, you hear sometimes a little truth from some of these people. So now some of your comments about the election and beyond.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I mentioned that during the show, we have a live chat going, but beyond that, there are a lot of people who comment. In fact, most people take the show in on delay, and most people take many people take a moment to write some kind of comment in delay, in that, like after hours trading, I call it. So we do read them, and Albert's got a few of them. I don't recall which ones they are, but if you wouldn't mind putting them up, Albert, I'll get a sense of things. JDA says, I think Trump provides plenty of material to run against him. It's a matter of messaging from the Dems. This is I believe in probably a comment under the conversation I had with Anthony Davis yesterday about things that the Democrats need to do, problems with the election, et cetera. This is the kind of soul searching that's generally going on the side of the Democrats. 2024 was lost, JDA says, because of poor messaging. Economy. Dems will win all the time against the orange dictator. Let me just say one thing about that. there was a poll, I thought it remarkable, taken now among GOP voters, asking them about the economy. And they all say the economy does seem to be in better shape now than it was before. Now, these are the same people who told you that the economy was in worse shape now than it was before. I guess what I'm trying to say is, with the Trump victory, there comes a shifting result on what people think the economy is actually doing. It's what I said all along. They're looking for a hook on which to hang their vote for Trump. They've decided already they're voting for Donald Trump. They don't like Kamala Harris. They don't like Joe Biden, whatever it might be. But they need a reason. And so the reason decided upon, offered up effectively by the GOP, was the economy. So that completely ignored the fact that the American economy rebounded from COVID better than any other economy in the developed world. We really have the envy of the developed world in terms of an economy. And that doesn't mean things aren't expensive, but it means in terms of inflation, our inflation is minuscule compared to the rest of the world. Still, economy was the message, and as noted by that commenter, messaging. It is effective. So they pounded the economy and they pounded immigration. So those became the reasons, the hooks on which you could hang your Trump vote. And that's what they did. So now you talk to those same people, some of them, and ask them about the economy. They go, the economy's not bad. Now, now that President Trump has won, I can see the economy coming back already. Really? Okay. What other comments do we have, Albert, please? I definitely believe something is terribly wrong here. There are 15 million votes missing. You can't tell me Trump received over 48% of the vote, says RC. That's bonkers. He got 46.4% in 2016, 46.8% in 2020. Biden received 81 million votes in 2020. And you're telling me Kamala only received 72 million? The majority of women, unions, blacks, Puerto Ricans, Hispanics, even a lot of Republicans, all in capital letters, voted for Kamala. Trump mostly got his base. That is why he received 74 million in 2020 and 75 million in 2024. Let me read that last part again. The majority of women, unions, blacks, Puerto Ricans, Hispanics, even a lot of Republicans, all voted for Kamala. Trump mostly got his base. That is why he received 74 million in 2020 and 75 million in 2024. Okay, I would take issue with one thing. Kamala Harris didn't carry a lot of those communities that you've referred to in the numbers that Joe Biden did. So when you're looking at women, Latinos, blacks, unions, those are the ones that you mentioned in that comment. Joe Biden carried those constituencies in bigger numbers than did Kamala Harris. I can't tell you why. I think that she was not the best candidate, and on this I get a lot of blowback. I've always said it, though. It wasn't like I said it after the fact. But I always felt that the negatives associated with Donald Trump, when you put him up against Kamala Harris, I thought there's not even a choice here. You've got any reasonable person, you've got to think that Kamala Harris could carry the day. But many people didn't show up. The numbers for the Democrats just weren't there in terms of who showed up. But let me be fair to this notion that is definitely out there that this election was not legitimate, that there are questions still circulating about Elon Musk's involvement in this election. And many of you have written to me about this. And I want to honor the number of communications I've gotten.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
With some response. And so let me give you this one, because I thought this is this is the Stephen Spooner call to action, essentially. Here is an email, and I've gotten a few of these, but here is one example. Please disseminate, Mark, this duty to warn letter, the hacking of election 2024. This is from Stephen Spooner, his advice to VP Harris. Quoted from that, You should reverse your concession, call for both a full investigation of criminal activity, and demand hand recounts in all 7 swing states. By the way, I've said, what's the problem with that? I don't see why you shouldn't get that. I mean, again, it's the cost is minuscule compared to what you are actually talking about, which is the rise, as you say, Kamala Harris, of despotism and fascism, et cetera. If it's that intense a situation, you'd think it would demand a basic recount, just a hand recount, just to make sure that all the paper ballots match the numbers. So she then pushes on this entire duty to warn letter, but it's pretty long. I'll read a couple of paragraphs for you just to give you the sense of it. But this is this guy, Stephen Spoonmore. I played a little bit from an interview that he gave the other day. He says, professionally, I've worked as the CEO or CTO at 7 high technology firms, including 2 of which specialized in hacking and counter-hacking operations. My clients have included numerous governments, DOD, DHS, Department of State, F-100 financials, and F-500 industrials. I'm a lifelong Republican who has long placed service and participatory democracy over party. In government, I have twice been invited to SOCOM to give lectures on electronic warfare and techniques to find terrorist money laundering, and gave a keynote speech at the National Counterland Summit on this same topic. I've served as an after-action reviewer of communications and data failures on 9/11 under the direction of Jim Woolsey and the FDNY, etc. He goes on, you should reverse your concession, Kamala Harris. Call for both a full investigation of criminal activity and demand hand recounts in all 7 swing states. In my professional view, he continues, there are multiple and extremely clear indications the presidential vote was willfully compromised. I wholly agree, he says, with the public letter of Duncan Buell and everyone of November 13th, stating that they believe there's a possibility of hacking and they call for hand recounts. This letter's clear call to action is commendable, but its cautious tone may belie the severity of what I believe has happened, he goes on. In my view, it is a near certainty the results have been changed at a scale which reversed the U.S. presidential election. They imply there is a chance a hand recount will show you won more votes, you, Kamala Harris. I'm stating a hand recount will most likely show you did win. Both these letters call on you to act, he says. Let me get you to the way in which it worked. The results of the attack are improbable in the extreme and well-tailored to the sole benefit of your opponent. And I'll read this and then we'll move on. But I want you to, and by the way, I'm going to continue here and then I'm going to give you an opposing argument, if you will, not on the technical side, but on the real way in which Trump and his minions and those who worked with Trump to get him back into office could legitimately, with old school politics meeting new technologies, but not a hack, have won the election. But let's continue with this. This he's talking about as a hack, an electronic hack. Approximately 600,000 votes are for Donald Trump, but with no down ballot choices. These are either inserted bullet ballots for the presidential race or manipulated data fields. Remember, the bullet ballot is just one vote that goes to one candidate, and that's all that's on the ballot. There are bullet ballots in every election, but when the number of bullet ballots exceeds in wildly high numbers the number of bullet ballots in a typical election, it should give you reason for pause. That's my opinion, not here in the letter, but let's continue. These are either inserted bullet ballots for the presidential race or manipulated data fields, he says. They are surgically added to totals in limited jurisdictions and with only the 7 swing states this happened. This historically unprecedented set of numbers found in the 2024 swing states is absent in every other state. In Arizona, Michigan, North Carolina, and Wisconsin, the effect of these drop-off votes reverses the voters' will and, even more improbably, always pushes the winning margin beyond the mandatory recount numbers. It is a result too perfect for belief. It is a bespoke and programmed outcome, he says. In other states, including Pennsylvania and Nevada, removing these strange and bespoke added votes, it appears Donald Trump may have won the cast votes, but within a margin of error which would force recounts. The inserted votes raise his totals to avoid any scrutiny during mandatory recount results, which would have slowed his claim on the presidency. In Georgia and Florida, the same pattern exists, with unclear impact on the results. This attack is not technically difficult. It is modest in scale. It would require modest and common computer programming skills, access to 10 to 100 tabulators, or to the handful of facilities programming them in advance, a credible database of voter IDs of non-voters around which to create false ballots, perhaps as few as one, but more likely 3 to 5 humans to program this entire thing. Access to e-bowl book data during the election to determine who had not voted, and possibly human access to some tabulators during counting. The tell, he says, a historically absurd number of Trump-only bullet ballots or undervote ballots. There are always a handful of voters who cast a vote in one race, which they care about, and do not make other selections on the ballot. These are called bullet ballots, what we were talking about before. In presidential races since 1980, these bullet ballots rarely account for more than 1% of the total votes, including in Mr. Trump's winning of the 2016 election and losing of the 2020 election. And when they do it, it warrants further investigation when they show up in bigger numbers. In 2024, in the 43 non-swing states, bullet ballots make up a nominal 1% approximately. In the 7 swing states, the numbers are so high to be unbelievable, he says, unprecedented, and demanding of further investigation. And then he goes on to analyze in Arizona, in Nevada, in Oregon, in Utah, and Idaho. He points to some sort of baseline, and it goes on and on. This is a lengthy statement from Spoonamore. But I mention it and read it because I want to give you guys who have inundated me with this some sense that I agree that I don't necessarily agree that the election was hacked. I don't know. I agree that there are enough red flags that I think a hand recount and asking for a hand recount is an absolutely legitimate ask. I don't know why it hasn't happened. It is too late now in Nevada. It's too late also, I think, in one other state. But I do believe the revelations that could come from a hand ballot recount would be so stunning so as to get everybody's attention and perhaps call into question the legitimacy of this last election. Now, again, you can quarrel with those numbers. You can quarrel with that narrative. And I understand that being an election denier or being, now you fall into the category of those 2020 Trumpers who, everything's a fix. The deep state was in it. I always hear about the deep state from the right and from the Trumpies. If the deep state is so powerful, how did your guy win? The deep state is in control of the Democrats, I thought. They're certainly, they have control of the presidency. In any case, I believe that it's appropriate to at least ask for a hand recount. But it's not going to happen. Kamala Harris is, I think, still in Hawaii right now. Not that it would matter where she is, but I think that is also where her head is, which is, hey, I gave it my best shot. I did everything I could. Meantime, if you're not someone who signs on to that, you may offer a modicum of respect to a GOP plan under Donald Trump that was different to win this election than other GOP strategies that they've employed to win the election and other, frankly, political strategies that have existed in the past. Here's a little piece of a Charlie Kirk interview in which he talks about the work they were doing on behalf of Trump to harvest and find a certain set of voters and to try to get them motivated to show up, to change essentially the way in which the party looked at the voters that they needed to get to the polls. Go ahead, Albert.
Registering to vote, we're registering at a clip 3-1 versus Democrat. In Pennsylvania, for the first time ever, in Pennsylvania, for the first time ever, we had every county in Pennsylvania, we were out registering Democrats for the first time ever. Now, mind you, what Josh Shapiro did as governor of Pennsylvania is he put in a thing called motor voter, which means you automatically get registered to vote. They thought that was going to help Democrats.
When you get your license.
When you get your driver's license. It helped Republicans because of lower, think about who's not registered to vote. It's typically lower propensity voters and PBD. Here's the kicker. Where do these people get their information? Lower propensity voters get information on TikTok. Mm-hmm. They're not watching CNN. They're not sitting. You know why? These folks are darn tired by the time they get home. They're not turning on cable news. They're watching NFL football games. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are not going to be able to quote to you, Marbury. They're not.
Strategy.
By the way,
it's also this.
Yeah, it's also the phone. So what Donald Trump campaign did is they hacked the 2024 election, not in a way that people would think, where they said, wait a second, everyone has a supercomputer in the right-hand pocket. Why are we worried about what CNN is saying or MSNBC is saying? Why don't we win the information war? And then finally, the kicker, they said, why don't we go on the most ambitious, over-the-top, low-propensity voter communication strategy on Theo Von, Joe Rogan, Nelk Boys, Logan Paul, influencer strategies, right? And so what they said is there's this whole reservoir. And the final kicker, my mandate at Turning Point was very simple. Charlie, turn Trump supporters into voters. And that's what we did.
Yeah. Boom. So that's, I thought that was an interesting summary of a non-hack plan, okay, that didn't involve, we're going to get Elon Musk to manipulate data, and a strategy that they did employ. And they showed up in big numbers, those men. Luis says, are we going to go through the it was rigged thing every single election now? We are stuck with the QVC king. Let's just move forward. Hashtag no J6 for Dems. I mean, I get that position, Luis. That's what I was saying before, that the protestations associated with the election kind of put you in the category of the 2020 J6ers or whatever. But that said, I do think if you see something that doesn't make sense, you have to call it out. And I don't think a hand recount is that big a deal. I'm not saying take to the streets. I'm simply saying, recount. And again, as I've told you, I'm a skeptic. I don't necessarily believe it was hacked. I don't know. But I do think that there are enough questions, and there are enough questions among Americans that just as a service to Americans, be fair, you should ask for the recount. So it's not expensive. You could raise the money easily to actually get these recounts underway. But
I know polls can be wrong, but one of the things that Charlie Kirk was saying in that video was that they went out and targeted younger voters. And all the polls showed, I thought from my memory, that it was that Kamala Harris had younger voters in the bag. I mean, that overwhelmingly younger voters were supporting her.
Well, I mean, I don't know about overwhelmingly. I mean, in swing states, I think it depended what swing state you were talking about. Mm-hmm. I believe, for example, in Michigan, younger voters didn't go up for Kamala Harris, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the Gaza thing, they were quite either committed to not voting, or they voted for Jill Stein or a third party. But I'd have to go back and look at those numbers again. I think it's clear that among young men, Donald Trump was dominant. And basically what Charlie Kirk was saying is, we decided that we're going to make this election about getting those people who were already on board to actually show up. And I don't want to make that sound like that's reinventing the wheel, because we talked about that here. Those people, Democrats have to show up, and the ground game is so good, et cetera. But what he talked about there that I liked, and I don't like Charlie Kirk particularly, obviously, and we have pretty much nothing we could agree on, but what I think we do agree on is that it's about messaging. I talk about it all the time on this show. You know, the issues that you vote on, the issues that you find important are dependent on many of the messages and much of the news that you get. So if you do get your news from TikTok, if you can dominate the TikTok space, if you do get your news from podcasts, if you can dominate the podcast space, if you get your news from whatever, if you can dominate the whatever, you begin to define the narrative. And I think the Republicans did that quite well. So people somehow forgot about the chaos or were ready to overlook the chaos of the first Trump administration. And now they're going to get reminded. And a guy who has no real plans for the economy somehow got away with just complaining about inflation and the economy and saying it's the worst economy ever, et cetera, when he had really no follow-ups as to what he was going to do besides tariffs. And the media played ball with that. They roasted Kamala Harris, demanding from Kamala Harris some kind of plan, some kind of economic strategy, et cetera, but they didn't make those same demands on Donald Trump. There was an absolute asymmetry about the way the media treated Donald Trump and the way they treated Kamala Harris. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't have a plan on anything, but they let him get away with, we're going to end the war in Ukraine in the first day. Probably, I don't even have to be in office. I'll end it in 24 hours with a phone call. Yeah. I mean, but this is just stuff, that soundbite was allowed to ride. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris had to, go through these withering interviews on 60 Minutes. Why isn't she meeting with more legitimate media? While Donald Trump went for back rubs on Fox and Friends and on Joe Rogan and as Theo Vaughn, et cetera. So you end up with all of these things, of course, contributing to a Trump victory. And you could look at all of those things as legitimate, if you will, ways that the messaging, the media, and the candidate all contributed to the Kamala Harris loss and the Donald Trump victory. But I don't accept or carve out any other conspiracy scenario as ridiculous until there is a recount. So always in the back of my mind, I'll wonder, because I don't think there will be a recount. I think most clearly there won't be. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Almost every, here's Andy, almost every election we find Republicans cheating. It's not too much to ask for a recount. I watch Vigilante, and I will be upset if we don't at least double check. Thank you, Andy Levy. And I'll say this also, I left that out. The disenfranchisement of voters that are in Vigilante Inc. I mean, you can look at that. It's on YouTube. It's free. That's the Greg Palast movie that we showed. We showed bits and pieces of it here, but we had Greg on yesterday. And I've left that out. I mean, there are legit ways in which voters are disenfranchised legally, and these are Jim Crow laws. I mean, these are ways in which minority votes are shed from the voter rolls. And Andy is absolutely right about that. So it's not too much to ask for a recount, exactly. And I think the Democrats either are so weak, so concerned with the way things will look, that they do things like appoint Merrick Garland as Attorney General and don't ask for a recount when there are clearly questions. The Democrats really need to grow a pair. It's just it's a cage match. They're fighting a cage match against these Republicans who are tough and they're ruthless. And if you're not ready to throw haymakers, then you don't belong in politics. Democrats, grow up. You have to play big boy politics. And I guess it's pretty ugly. Based on what Dana White is saying. Dana White, the UFC president, says, I want nothing to do with politics again. It's too ugly for even me. It's clearly more than just getting your message out. Mm-hmm. So, all right. I have much to do that's not...
The Mark Thompson Show.
I have much to do that's not that, but I wanted to give all of you who have written to me and just the argument itself, I wanted to give it its due here. Albert, I ask you as the producer of this show, what do I need to do, sir?
Albert, thank you.
I think I have a Florida segment that you have curated. I should tell everyone that we come from a respected, successful talk radio station, KGO. And one of the things we did on KGO is every Friday, we look to Florida for some offbeat stories. And Albert curates this segment carefully in a concerned and focused way, the way Albert does everything on this show.
Albert, thank you.
And so I ask you today, Albert, are you feeling comfortable about the Florida segment that's ahead?
Yeah. And I had the extra story at the bottom with some Gator news.
Okay. All right. Michael Shure in hour 2. We'll go over the Trump cabinet nominations. We'll also get a little bit more into the politics of things. We'll look at the week in politics with Michael. But until then, this is Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
A 44-year-old Florida woman using her mother's identity to apply for hurricane aid. Wow.
Oh, wow.
It's a wild idea, but it just might work.
No.
Yeah. She was telling city employees that she looked younger because of Botox. There she is on the Mark Thompson Show booking photo scale, a 10 scale, 1 to 10. Kim, I leave it to you to rate this booking photo. People don't look their best in booking photos. I'm guessing that she is quite a lovely lady when she is in, like, going to a red carpet event. But this was more of a booking photo situation. So
I want to know how old she is versus how old her mother is.
yeah, she's 44, but you're
Okay.
right. The question is to how old her mother is.
She doesn't look like a lady in her 60s. Yeah.
Yeah. So she says that she almost got away with her scheme, but a city employee noticed the age discrepancy. She arrived to pick up her $8,000 check, and the city employee took notice. And she said, this just doesn't match the information on your form here. And the city employee, when she queried the woman, she was told that this woman had undergone Botox treatments that provided transformational results. That's the reason she looks so young.
I don't know if Botox is good, but it's not that good. No.
Yeah. She was arrested, and she is in custody, defrauding.
I'll give her a 7 on the mugshot.
Oh, okay. Very, very well done. She gets a 7. The Florida man arrested after going back to the scene of a stabbing of a Good Samaritan.
Oh.
A man in South Florida is in jail tonight. That's the way it reads. It's not tonight when we're doing this, but I just threw that in. It also sounds dramatic.
Yeah.
Man in South Florida is in jail tonight. Cops say that he went back to the scene of a stabbing. Bystanders chased down this dude. He has blue hair, which is always blue hair is a strong choice, I always feel. Easy to spot, though. And people said
surprised.
He was the person who harassed a waitress at a restaurant and then stabbed a Good Samaritan who tried to intervene on behalf of the waitress.
Oh, no.
The man is now facing charges of attempted murder and aggravated battery. Wow. No fun. It'll be hard to keep up that due in prison.
The blue hair is fine, but if you have stabbed someone, you might not want to linger at the scene of the crime. I mean, it kind of makes you stand out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you want to take your blue hair back home.
Yeah.
To Blue Hairsville. Florida man accused of posing as Elon Musk, defrauding an elderly woman of $250,000 after promising her a $55 million return on her money.
It sounds too good to be true.
He impersonated billionaire Elon Musk.
Oh, man.
Jeffrey Arthur Moynihan Jr. He does have an Elon Musk successful kind of name. Jeffrey Arthur Moynihan Jr. Shown there in the arrest photo. He was arrested at his Bradenton, Florida home and charged with grand theft. Operating under the guise of the SpaceX CEO, the 56-year-old businessman befriended a 74-year-old Texas resident on Facebook and began messaging her over the course of a year. The messaging started in 2023. The woman in Texas was allegedly promised $55 million return on her original investment. Her husband reportedly told investigators that she was conned out of $600,000 in total. The cops in the Bradenton Police Department were tipped off by the authorities in Frisco, Texas, who were investigating the incident. And half of the money could be traced back to banks in Bradenton, Florida. And the accounts were determined to belong to this guy, Moynihan. The woman in Texas was convinced that she had, in fact, invested her money with Elon Musk. She said that Elon would regularly brief her on how his day was going and how her investments were gaining momentum. Would even reference details from recent news stories to build a rapport and credibility. After the fake Elon built trust with her, he suggested that she invest in his business. She made several transactions over a period of time. And she transferred $250,000 to accounts belonging to this guy, Moynihan. You see his booking photo, though, Albert? That's the arrest picture, but further down, there is a booking photo.
A lot of comments that he doesn't look much like Elon Musk, except maybe for the physique.
Yes, he's got the Elon, is that the daddy, what is that called?
Beer belly? Dad bod?
Dad bod.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is his booking photo, everybody, and I wanted you to see it. And Kim, I'll again ask you to rate it on a 10 scale.
Some sideburns there.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Again, I'm sure he could clean up well for the Oscars, but right now he's being booked in. So what would you give him?
I'm going to give that an 8.
Wow, she gives him an 8, man.
Image is hideous.
Yeah.
It's not quite the face. I'm going for the sideburns there. Yeah.
The investigation is ongoing, they say, and to be continued. And then lastly, there is a bonus story. The largest alligator population by state with 1.3 million gators. In a list of states, Florida is not on the top of the list. It has 1.3 million gators, and still that's not enough to make the top of the list.
That's a lot of gators.
It's a lot of gators.
Yeah.
The top 10 gator states, you don't really get into serious gator numbers till you get to Georgia.
Uh-oh.
South Carolina's got 100,000, they're fifth. Georgia has 200 to 250,000 gators. They're fourth. 400 to 500,000 gators in Texas. Florida is only number 2 with 1.3 million alligators. The number 1 most populous state for gators is Louisiana with 2 million gators. Wow.
Don't the gators live in the bayou?
They do, like the swamp.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. Maybe that's the...
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood.
That's right. And Louisiana this year, with 2 million gators topping our survey. The fact is, Kim is right. Louisiana has all that bayou country where they like to hang out. So we have to choose a favorite among the Florida stories offered, and here they are. The woman who is 44 years old, defrauding the state from hurricane aid money, using Botox as the excuse for the reason she doesn't look like the woman of her mother's age who's on the form. She was busted as she was picking up her $8,000 check. The Florida man arrested after stabbing a Good Samaritan who was intervening on behalf of a waitress that he was hassling. He with blue hair, this man, returned to the scene and was arrested. And finally, the man accused of posing as Elon Musk, defrauding an elderly woman of at least $250,000 after promising a $55 million return. She believed she was speaking with Elon Musk. What is your favorite? I'll turn to you, Kim.
I love that we had a little gator picture in there.
Yeah.
But
Kim,
I'm going to have to go Botox hurricane scammer.
Botox hurricane scammer.
And the eagle-eyed clerk that recognized that something was amiss.
Yeah, that is pretty true. Yeah, had you not gone in personally to pick up the 8K, probably could have gotten away with it. But Botox beauty, to whom I say, duh, Karen Cooper says. Albert, what about you? What leads in the voting online, please?
Fake Elon is leading. I saw a comment that said felon, like a felon, but it's spelled Elon.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that, but that was leading. I like the blue-haired criminal because, you return to the scene of a crime. You can't do that with blue hair. It's very Florida.
I agree. That is a little awkward. And I, too, go for the return to the scene of the crime, blue-haired felon and knife. Yeah. Well done, Albert, including the fact as to the most populous region for gators not being Florida. In America, I would have guessed Florida, lead pipe cinch. But it is, if you're just joining us, not
they
Florida.
Have the Everglades. You'd think the Everglades are more vast than the swamp.
Right.
They've got ever right in the title. I mean, you'd think it would be a boundless number of alligators, but Louisiana is number one. And that is Friday Fabulous Florida.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
Thank you for being here, everybody. We are a live show, 2 hours-ish every day, Monday through Friday, and it's great to have you. Smash the like button if you would. It helps us in the world of YouTube. And, somehow the algorithms and it's helped by that sort of thing. Got an announcement for you on Monday. We have some great stuff happening next week. We've got some special things happening into the holidays, so I hope you'll all join for some of that. So all of those pieces of information will be dropped in the days to come.
The Mark Thompson Show.
But now, how about it for a guy who joins us on Fridays? He's a political reporter. He's attended and reported from many of these Trump rallies, the Kamala Harris rallies. He's been on Capitol Hill in the belly of the beast for years. He has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. He is Michael Shure, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Michael, the thing that's playing out now in Washington is this back and forth on Trump nominations to cabinet posts. I will get to that in a second, but one of the things that's happened, and this is pretty significant in my view, and I wanted to see if you agree with me. One of the things that's happened is that Trump sort of set up his own little office that isn't among a cabinet appointment type position. In this case, I'm talking about our friend Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the two of whom have been charged with sort of paring government down, trying to eliminate the waste in government. It's the Department of Government Efficiency, they're calling it. And when it first happened, and this is the part that I wanted to get your opinion on, when it first happened, I thought, well, these guys don't really have any power. I mean, this isn't a real agency. They can't eliminate an arm of government on their own. They would need to make recommendations, and then those recommendations presumably would be put before Congress, et cetera. But here's what happened this week. The House Oversight Committee announced, this just happened yesterday, that Republicans are planning to create a subcommittee that would work with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy on President-elect Trump's Department of Government Efficiency and follow through potentially on many of these recommendations. So in other words, they're not just making recommendations to the executive. They would have an instrument of government to at least begin the process of following through on many of the recommendations they would make. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's not unprecedented. I mean, what they're basically doing is making suggestions and recommendations to Congress, and Congress, nothing can happen without Congress's involvement. Similarly, Bill Clinton did that when Al Gore was his vice president, and he charged Al Gore with paring government waste as well. And they issued a report that was joint between the vice president's office and the Congress. So you need Congress to be part of the picture if you're going to try and make change. I mean, you can have Musk and Ramaswamy in an office together, but like you said, Mark, anything they say would also have to be approved by Congress. Just because they say it, there are executive orders that can happen, but this kind of a thing is not something that's done by fiat or executive order. What's interesting is Speaker Mike Johnson, who from Louisiana, where they have the most gators in the country, is somebody who has had a very difficult relationship with the very far right in his party, in the Freedom Caucus and whatnot, even though Johnson was part of the Freedom Caucus, the Matt Gaetz, Eli Crane, Marjorie Taylor Greene wing. Well, he's talking now about smoking a peace pipe with Marjorie Taylor Greene and having her chair that subcommittee. So you're going to have Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is, it's political comedy stuff you can't always believe. But when you have control of both houses of Congress and the White House, you get a period of time where these things can happen. And again, it doesn't mean it's going to be approved. Something that Marjorie Taylor Greene is chairing is going to have the skepticism of even some in her own caucus.
They've come through with a Wall Street Journal piece in which they detail some of the stuff they want to do. I'm talking about Ramaswamy and Musk, and they've talked about it in interviews as well. One of the things they speak of is they want to get to a 5-day work week where you have to come in as a government employee between 8 and 6 p.m. And they say that right away will shed a bunch of government employees who've gotten used to working from home, at least for part of the week. The idea somehow that they could go at the government with an axe and be backed up in some way by the House, at least initially, Michael, and they'd need that. You'd need the House buy-in. You're saying, and this, you always kind of talk me off the ledge when you say stuff like this, like, hey, this has been tried before and it's been done before and it's really nothing to panic over, even as they seem super aggro in the way that they're going at it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've never had the richest man in the world chair this effort. So it does bring a little bit of attention to it. It's not a very sexy subject, trimming government waste. So it becomes that when you put Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, less so, and even more so than Vivek Ramaswamy, Marjorie Taylor Greene as the point person on Capitol Hill. You have these really strong personalities and very unusual personalities in American politics who aren't, with the exception of Greene, we're not elected to anything, and so I think that that's what makes it a little different, obviously. So I wouldn't say calm down, everything's going to be all right, because there is no precedent for that part of it. But the precedent that exists is that you have to do this with Congress, and involving Congress in the efforts of a White House is certainly not unusual, even if it's sort of extra cabinet. It falls out of the purview of an official government department. I will say that there's going to be, look, if the 5-day work week is the worst thing that comes out of this, I think a lot of people on Capitol Hill will be okay with that. Small businesses have been hurt by the lack of, by the work from home movement that came out of the pandemic, meaning the people that rely on those workers, whether it be restaurants, whether it be coffee shops, retail, people that pass these establishments on their way to work, in and out of work, that eat there for lunch, et cetera. So I don't think that's going to be met with, real rancor. It's when they try and go too far and actually eliminate their jobs, because, government workers have very good pensions. And just because you're saying you've got to come into the office, I don't think they're going to trim a lot of fat there, because those jobs have to get done.
Well, the more alarming, if you will, or the more radical move is the Schedule F conversion. Right. They want to convert a bunch of employees to Schedule F. You can maybe review for us again what that is, but essentially it strips them of job protections, right? And they could then make big cuts in the workforce.
Well, that's the biggest part, is when you take away the job security, it gives the people that run these things the ability to just say goodbye, right? Here's your 2-week severance. Here's whatever's left in your 401k, adios. And that's where it gets dangerous, So that's why I was saying the work week is the least of it. If they do the work week, so be it. But if they do the Schedule F and they find other ways of eliminating people, and that's, listen, I mean, Elon Musk, his MO is eliminating jobs and finding other ways of doing them, and so that's the backstory.
Yeah, it's clearly a plan that they're taking seriously. When they spoke of it initially, and it's still sort of in the initial stages, but I was thinking, well, this feels a little ceremonial or a little performative. I think there will be a lot of performative stuff. Trump likes that stuff. He likes,
and provocative too. He likes being provocative, and
right?
Not going through build the wall, but he didn't. And there's a little bit of that to the way he operates.
Yeah, and their plan is to go over regulations. They want to deregulate like crazy, and they say this in this op-ed piece, and they talk about Supreme Court decisions that would essentially back them up. And they want to install legal experts within federal agencies to review regulations before presenting this list of rules for Trump to consider halting through executive action and initiating a process for a review and exactly for a rollback of many of these both regulations and actually, of course, as you know, they want to dismantle big parts of government.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, as you read it doesn't sound sexy, but it can be very, very damaging, and it can be and especially that it's happening so quickly. If he did this after a year back in the White House, I would be less sort of alarmed by it. But he's going to have a free ride for a little while. Then that free ride will end, because the way the politics work and the way the governance works is, John Thune is now going to be the chairman, the majority leader of the Senate. He's going to want to put his foot down on a few things. Trump is a lame duck the moment he takes the oath of office, because the Constitution says he can't run again, despite the bloviating that you hear from other people about changing it. It's not going to happen. And so there will be different dynamics in the House where people are going to try and put their stamp on things, and people are going to try and differentiate themselves for Trump, especially those who want to move on to the presidency. So there's going to be a period where he's going to be able to do these things, but that's not going to last throughout his term.
Now to the politics of confirmation.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see the disruption that is Donald Trump, to which you've sort of just referred a moment ago, meet the industry of Washington that is defined by so many norms that butt right up against that. And so with some of his most controversial nominations, I'm talking about Gates, who's now out of the game, Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, you have Dr. Oz, and RFK Jr. These are, I'd suggest, sort of the crown jewels of those who've come from television that clearly and celebrity in the case of RFK Jr.
Well, I mean, in the case of Dr. Oz, celebrity. In the case really of Matt Gaetz, celebrity. I mean, they do come. Matt Gaetz came from, and it doesn't matter, he's moot now. But I mean, there is this sort of celebrity politician thing, and Donald Trump's also a provocateur. There's the own the libs thing. There's the revenge stuff. So it's all bottled up in the same stuff for him, and I think that's why it's it's a little different than most confirmation processes. And what you started saying there, Mark, is that Donald Trump is now going to run into establishment Washington. Well, in his first term, establishment Washington did pretty much everything that Donald Trump wanted from within his own party. And that's what I'm saying is going to be a little different, not immediately, but in a year from now, and it'll be a Saturday a year from now. So I guess a year from yesterday when we're doing this show.
Very impressive knowledge.
We'll be talking in different ways about it, because it's there will be some pushback from members of his own party. That's not going to be there initially. And I think that when you look at these people that have been nominated to these positions, I mean, even Linda McMahon, she's a celebrity, right? In a way, Department of Education. So.
Yeah, that's one part of it, that they're celebrities, but there are other parts of it that would suggest that, they have troubled histories. Linda McMahon maybe lower on the list of those who have been implicated in at least turning a blind eye to sexual assault. I mean, the sexual assault allegations against what was going on at WWE forced the resignation of her husband, and it's suggested that she knew a lot about it. But you get to Kristi Noem, who's the Homeland Security Secretary nominee. I mean, she has her own kind of a radioactivity associated with what she wrote about in her book, and killing the puppy, and Tulsi Gabbard sitting down with Assad, and being a mouthpiece for Putin, and then Pete Hegseth. I mean, they're just. And the reason these are all worth noting that way.
You want me to shoot this? Do you need me to shoot this dog?
If that dog says, "We'll call Kristi," she'll send a crew. But there is a kind of thinking, and I sort of have this thinking, which is Trump is going to get most of his picks. Presidents get most of their picks on this stuff.
There are 53 Republican senators. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. And there's control. And you're not going to have, his own party turn on him in the kind of numbers over and over again to reject the picks. Yeah. So give me, and I know this is sort of tough to handicap, but nonetheless, the 3D chess of this. I, for example, said Gates getting bounced was the worst thing to happen to Pete Hegseth, who's the big loser on that, because now I think his nomination may not survive the scrutiny that he's going to get. Do you agree with that?
I think that's true. I mean, look, there are two senators, Senator Murkowski and Senator Collins, Alaska and Maine, who are going to be tough sells on a lot of these. But he'll have Vice President Vance at that point, who can break a tie. So he's got to lose 4 votes there. He's got to lose more than is probably on the docket, right? So if he goes, if it's anything but tied, he's got his nominees in there. What Murkowski can do is they barter these senators. They'll go to another senator and say, listen, if you vote against Hegseth with me, I won't cause any problems on X, Y, or Z. And it doesn't have to be a nominee. I won't cause any problems on the ag bill. I won't run against you for the chairmanship of X committee. So there are all sorts of different ways that these things can happen. And that's what senators do. And they will do that. Now, I would agree with you that I think Hegseth is probably the first to go, not just because of who he is, but because of the importance of that department to so many Republicans. So I think that if you're talking about, well, what about Kennedy, Health and Human Services? He has an agenda. That agenda is he's not going to take fluoride out of the water overnight, and that's going to have to take a while. So the extremes of Robert Kennedy don't seem like the meat of what these people are going to be hanging on to, the Republicans, I'm saying. But they value the Defense Department. They think it's an important place for serious people. And I don't think they want to make mistakes there.
Just because you mentioned RFK Jr., just to follow up, I want to say that it seems clear, I agree with you, that he's just not going to make any progress. For example, taking on big ag. I don't think he'll take big food. I mean, somehow he wants to clean up the American diet. I mean, have you sit there watch an NFL game? It's just one. Yeah. It's just one awful thing after another that's also delicious. So, right. We Americans want our deliciousness, and we don't want to be told by the nanny state that we can't have it.
Totally. And the defense appropriations bill coming from the Pentagon is something that congressmen and members and senators deal with all the time. Congress members and senators deal with that all the time. They vote on it. It matters to their district. Not to say that Health and Human Services doesn't, but you don't see big pieces of legislation coming out of the Department of Health and Human Services that are going to make Congress have to act on them, and like they do with spending bills for the Defense Department. So it's not that one is less or more serious than the other. It's just the way that Congress interacts with these departments.
So his suggestions, your point is, or your implied point is, could this languish and
right.
Assuming gets there? Yeah.
There's not a mandate that they have to come in and do these things as they do voting on a Pentagon budget.
Now to the attorney generalship, and with Matt Gaetz out of the picture, Pam Bondi, the former attorney general of Florida, is the nominee to be the U.S. attorney general. She's a real Trump loyalist. Albert, play a little bit of her on Fox News. She's had a couple of pretty, this is from CNN. Go ahead.
This is just one big press conference trying to smear Donald Trump, trying to hurt Donald Trump.
It's really unbelievable what they're doing.
Right.
They are obstructing the candidate, President Donald Trump.
The Department of Justice, the prosecutors will be prosecuted, the bad ones. The investigators will be investigated because the deep state, last term for President Trump, they were hiding in the shadows, but now they have a spotlight on them and they can all be investigated.
Thank you, Albert. Yeah, thank you, Albert. I also would mention one thing, and these are my words, not those of our guest. I believe she is corrupt. I think her corruption is shown in the fact that she took $25,000 to in monies for her campaign, and then she dropped the Trump University suit that was well alive in the state of Florida. You'll remember that that Trump University settlement included $25 million for people who were defrauded by Trump University. $25 million was the settlement. It was paid by Trump and the university. She dropped it in Florida, having gotten a $25,000 contribution to her campaign. I think she is very corruptible, and so now you might want to say that all AGs are corrupt on some level and blah blah blah. But I thought that was a really it's a really bad look. But clearly, she's a dogged fighter and defender of Donald Trump.
Yeah, I don't for a second think that that all AGs are corrupt. I don't think that at all. I think Pam Bondi was clearly corrupt. She made some incredible choices. She also never, she never took the 2020 election results seriously. She never believed them. She is somebody who she asked the governor to postpone an execution so that she could go to a fundraiser. I mean, her choices have been anything but kind of, of the people. And I think that she is a controversial loyalist, but controversial loyalists get jobs. She's not the person. I mean, and they've gotten 2 nominations now. Matt Gaetz, a controversial loyalist, and Pam Bondi, a controversial loyalist. And I think that she's not going to be a good and popular pick. But I think Democrats have to sort of get comfortable with the fact that nobody that he's going to name to these departments is going to make them jump for joy. I mean, that's what happens when somebody like this is elected, somebody who doesn't go along with the general ways of Washington, to have somebody who'd been in the Justice Department, to have somebody who was a different kind of AG, for example. That's not what Donald Trump would do. If Mitt Romney had won the presidency, his cabinet wouldn't have, Democrats wouldn't have loved them, but they would have understood those picks.
So she will likely get in. I mean, I don't see any way that she's going to be rejected. And as I say, Michael, would you sign on to the fact that most of his picks will get through?
Oh, yeah, of course they will. I mean, and Democrats are going to vote for a lot of his picks, too. I mean, people should get comfortable with that as well. The giving the president the authority to nominate his cabinet is part of what they do. And that's part of the role of a senator. And a lot of traditionalists are going to support the picks of a president. Maybe not this one as much as they would other presidents, but there are certainly controversial picks in there that are going to have the Democrats are going to talk to their Republican colleagues about in the middle and see if those are the ones that are not going to make it through. And I would imagine that Hegseth, like you said, is numero uno for not making it through.
Daniel is asking, why do you have confidence that the Supreme Court won't give Trump a 3rd term, Michael Shure?
Because it's not just the Supreme Court who does it. Also because they are strict constitutionalists in their own mind. It's changing the Constitution, and the Constitution doesn't just change in that way. So I'm not at all concerned about that.
Cousin Erie says one way or another she's going to use the Justice Department to harass Trump's enemies.
There's no question about that. There's no question at all about that. I mean, that's what she's going to do, because that's what her boss wants to do. And it's going to be, the same thing with having people audited who weren't expecting to be audited. I mean, that's how this vengeance is going to happen. It's not going to happen, but by going to jail. It's going to happen by making life really miserable for a lot of the people that Donald Trump holds responsible for both 2020, for the January 6th associations that made of him having caused it, all of that. So I definitely think that that's how it's going to come down.
Give little Marco, as he's called here in this post from Tony Ladati. Thank you for the super chat. 6 months before Trump fires him. That may or may not be true. You can comment on that if you want, Michael, but I also think it brings up something else, which is there are some big egos, and there's only so much limelight, and generally Donald Trump likes that limelight to be on him. I wonder if you can speak to how you handicap that. Like, there were a lot of firings in the first go-round with in season 1 of the Donald Trump presidency.
Yeah, I mean, there were firings, and there were people that were defying the president because of the things he was asking them to do. So they got fired for defying the president. I think. Look, I don't think we've never seen anybody in our lifetime like Donald Trump in terms of what he's able to get away with, even from people who trust the institutions. And so could he fire people? Yes. One thing you can say about President Biden is that his cabinet has stuck with him. There have been no controversies, no scandals. The scandal in his administration was with his son and wasn't really his administration, obviously. And so I think that there's a difference when this guy is president. But I think the one thing, the security blanket that a lot of people who can't stand him have is the fact that he, like I said at the beginning, he's a lame duck immediately. There's a different kind of power that he's going to be able to wield as time goes by here. And so, I think he's going to fire people. I think there are things that are going to be surprising to all of us that we can't even predict right now. I don't know that Rubio would get fired. I think that in order to get a senator to leave, you don't just fire them right away. But again, predicting Donald Trump is not an easy thing, and hopefully we don't have to do it for very long.
There was this is the last thing, and it's kind of a conspiracy-related thing.
Okay.
It came into me into the email, and I think it was also in a comment after looking at a bunch of comments. I thought this is provocative. I don't ascribe to supporting this conspiracy, but here it is. It's that the green light on Ukraine using missiles supplied by the United States in new ways that would allow them to fire into Russia is a deliberate cranking up of that conflict to leave it on the table for Donald Trump, and to essentially create a bigger mess for Donald Trump to clean up when he takes power. Do you think that there's any of that going on? It doesn't seem very Biden-esque to do it that way.
Well, it doesn't seem Biden-esque, and there's, the U.S. can do it unilaterally, but they're certainly going to speak to, Keir Starmer in the UK. They're going to speak to Macron. This is not something that happens like that. I don't think anybody, including the emailer, but you or me, any of us are qualified to say whether this is a valid conspiracy. Could it be possible? Sure, it could be possible, but it doesn't have that. You'll recall, Mark, I don't think you were born, but I was. The Iran hostages were released just after Reagan took the oath of office, after, and they said that was done to embarrass Carter, even though it was Carter's man, Warren Christopher, who was over negotiating that release, and it happened. The timing was, of course, it could have happened a day earlier and everyone would have been okay with it. But embarrassing the other side and embarrassing your counterparts at this point, that does not, I agree, Mark, seem Biden-esque in its execution, nor does it seem consistent with the people like Lloyd Austin and Anthony Blinken. It just doesn't ring true to me. Could it be true? Sure, it could be true, but none of us are qualified to say it, and I would bet against it hard.
Michael, I would be remiss if I didn't draw you into one last question about the election. I've just read so much about the election. I'm not going to ask you about was it legitimate or not. We've more than, I think, successfully tilled that soil on both sides. I am going to ask you if the Democrats are looking to be doing more of the same, or if there was some clarion call that you've heard and that you think the Democrats will kind of reconstitute themselves in some way to make them more effective in terms of winning elections. They did win elections. I shouldn't, but you know, on top of tickets.
I know what you mean. They lost the White House, and they lost it, not decisively, but badly enough that the map looks pretty red. I think less than a month after an election is the worst time to answer these questions. Everybody's pretty raw. Everybody has a theory. I always say that an element of everybody's theory is probably true. Is it candidate based? Is it the fact that they totally misran this campaign, even though people thought that it was going the right way on that side? I think one thing here's what I think is a good lesson. Governor Newsom in California is visiting every Trump county that voted for Donald Trump in California, in his state. And he's doing it. There's a showmanship to it. There's an outreach. There's an I want to be president thing about it. But there's something true about what he's doing also, which is he's speaking to voters who Democrats don't connect with anymore. And for whatever reason, it's not all because they're enamored of Trump. There was somebody being interviewed. There was a guy doing interviews in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's district in New York City, asking people who they voted for. Every single person they asked, and I saw about a dozen of them, said they voted for Trump and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. And so there's some connection, there's some disconnect there, right? These people are not about policy. That Democrats are not explaining enough to them. Yes, it was great to have this campaign be about joy and coming together and all of that, but joy is not enough to win a presidency. And I think the Democrats really have to understand their connection with working Americans has been broken in several ways, and they have to mend that. And it's totally mendable, right? I mean, you have to get these people to understand that. And there's going to be fall off in the Republican candidate, whoever it is, whether it's Vice President Vance or another in 2028. They're not going to have the same kind of support that Donald Trump had. Democrats have to make sure that some of those voters come back to them and some of the new voters come to them. I think that's the biggest part, talking to people.
Michael, I look forward to our next visit. By the way, we are dark next Friday, so this will be it. You'll have a Friday off. You'll still receive the same handsome compensation that you're given every Friday.
I am glad. I'm glad, and I will. I will remember on Thanksgiving to be thankful that I have a day off on Friday, but I still get a paycheck, so that's good. I like that. Yeah.
He is so
I don't
generous.
even have a mug. Can I curse? I don't even have a mug.
An effing mug?
An effing mug, yeah.
Well, actually, there are new mugs coming.
Yeah, I want an old one. I want an old one.
You want a classic? Of course, you want an OG mug.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I will get you one of those mugs.
I'm sure the guy, I'm sure the Culture Blaster has one.
The Culture Blaster, it's his birthday today.
Yeah, well, I'm
Culture
sure
Blaster's birthday. Yeah.
He's getting a new mug for his birthday, and he probably has an old one. Kim, how many mugs do you have, Kim? You should have mugs. Kim should have mugs.
I have total mugs, like so many.
How many does Carla Marinucci have?
I mean, on the hierarchy of mugs, I feel like you're at the bottom, my friend.
I feel like that way too. I'm going to go over to Carla Marinucci's place, and she's going to have a mug, and I'm going to be embarrassed.
Send me that picture of you and Carla Marinucci with the mug.
I have the picture of me and Carla Marinucci. We don't have a mug. So,
that was pretty funny the day that you called in, the two of you. All right. We love you. Michael Shure, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, Albert, you're such a genius. Figure this out. I've got Michael Snyder, the birthday boy. It's his birthday today.
Is he in the studio yet?
He's in the studio. You want to sit down, Michael? I know it's not quite clear for you, Michael, but do you want to sit down, Culture Blaster, on your birthday? It's so exciting to have you here.
I like standing and delivering, Mark. I'm kind of like the one of those highwaymen in old England.
It is so great that you are here on your birthday. A lot of people would have taken their birthdays off, but not you. You're dedicated to your craft. Just one of the things I like about you.
I am definitely crafty.
Yeah. So now this is where I ask you, Albert. I feel like I should do Kim's news. She works hard on collecting news, and it is important. There's a lot going on in the world. And still, I want to commit to the Culture Blaster, the Birthday Boys segment. So,
Albert, thank you.
Do you think can I do the news now and then Culture Blaster follows? Why don't I do that?
Of course, yes. And if the Culture Blaster could just quickly send over the list of movies.
Did you? He did send it last night. I even responded to it.
Okay.
We didn't. I didn't get it either.
Did you not send it to? Yeah, you did. You sent it to. Okay, I'll go in and I'll make sure you get it. Yeah. But I did respond to it. I saw it last night. In fact, it was sent in a very timely way. And they're big movies, Culture Blaster, that you're reviewing this time.
We don't stint, Mark, just because we're, having a little birthday celebration. Are you going
to review the Gladiator sequel, sir?
I shall.
Are you going to review Wicked, sir?
I must.
Yes. I'm sending this on. Oh, wait a minute. To be fair to them, you sent it to me only. You did not send it to my distinguished colleagues, Culture Blaster.
Shock horror, as they say in the UK.
Well, you can mock it, but it's an awkward way for you to start your birthday. That's all I would say.
We'll cut this out in post.
I'll send it on so you don't have to. All right. Smash the like button, although I don't know why you would. Smash the like button. It helps us in
with your iron
this
rod.
world of YouTube. It is the Culture Blaster's birthday. He is our distinguished movie critic, and he will have the word on everything as we continue. Kim's news, and then the Culture Blaster blasts in. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Northern California and the Pacific Northwest are in for more severe weather after 2 people died and thousands have been left without power as a result of this bomb cyclone. The storm hanging around for the weekend. It's expected to drop anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of rain in some areas. Another storm set to move off the Oregon and Washington coast today. Won't be as bad as the first one, but areas along the coast could see winds of 50 miles per hour, flooding, rock slides, this type of thing.
Have you lost power at your place? You're in the center of the action, the center of the storm.
Center of the action. I can hear the storm whirling outside.
But have you lost power?
Thanks for bringing that up. Are you trying to jinx me?
That hadn't occurred to me, but if I can jinx you, it'd be my pleasure.
Knock on wood. So far,
what is that? So you've not had any power interruptions?
No, not even a flicker.
All right.
Now, in the next 2 minutes, you'll see the lights go off. President-elect Trump having his sentence delayed indefinitely in his New York hush money case. Judge Juan Merchan granted a stay of sentencing pending motions to dismiss the case by Trump's lawyers that involve payments made to porn actress Stormy Daniels. Merchan is allowing Trump's attorneys to file motions to dismiss this case, given the fact that he is the president-elect. Trump found guilty of giving illegal payments to Daniels before the 2016 election to buy her silence to cover up an alleged sexual encounter.
When you get to, 18 months in this Trump administration, illegal payments is just going to be part of the game, baby. Yeah. If you ever find out about them. I mean, you've got an attorney general who took $25,000 to drop the investigation into the Trump University claims. And by the way, she didn't even have to investigate. All of that was done for her. All she had to do was be a signatory to it so that people in the state of Florida who were defrauded by Trump University could enjoy some of that money.
Yeah. Well, $25,000 is a drop in the old bucket. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, you can buy her cheap. Maybe
Yeah,
not as Attorney General anymore.
Like, what did she need that money for? Speaking of Trump, though, he's got a new pick for Attorney General after Matt Gaetz withdrew his nomination for the cabinet position. Trump has chosen former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, saying in a post on Truth Social, she will refocus the DOJ to its intended purpose of fighting crime and making America safe again.
And going after Trump's political enemies. Yes.
Oh, my. Democratic incumbent Bob Casey is conceding Pennsylvania's Senate election to Republican Dave McCormick. In a video posted on social media, Casey said he had called McCormick to congratulate him on his victory. Casey's announcement comes 16 days after the November 5th election. As of Wednesday, when an automatic recount began, McCormick led Casey by roughly 16,000 votes. Not that much. Speaking of voting, a new report finds California turnout in this year's election is lower than it was 4 years ago. The report from the California Secretary of State's office says the turnout rate shown by the number of ballots already counted is at just under 70%. The report says there's about 1.7 million fewer voters in California this year compared to the 2020 election. The number is surprising to analysts in part because California had roughly 550,000 newly registered voters this year. So where did they go? The race to determine who will represent California's 45th congressional district is still too close to call, even at this late date. Per last night's update, Democratic challenger Derek Tran is now leading Republican incumbent Michelle Steele by 480 votes. It equals a lead of about 0.2 of a percentage point. At one point, Steele had a lead of about 11,000 votes, but Tran overtook her in the vote count last Saturday and has not lost the lead since. The winner will represent northeastern Orange County and a few communities in southeastern Los Angeles County as well. Consumer sentiment edged lower after the election, still though slightly better than October. The University of Michigan's final reading for November slipped just over a point below its pre-election reading. The woman nominated for Education Secretary in President-elect Trump's cabinet is now named in a sexual abuse lawsuit. Linda McMahon, the co-chair of Trump's transition team, is the former president of the World Wrestling Entertainment. In a recent lawsuit, she was accused of failing to stop a ringside announcer from grooming and sexually abusing children in the 80s and 90s. This lawsuit claims McMahon was aware of credible abuse allegations against this announcer, who has since passed away, and that she tolerated them. President Biden says the ICC arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is outrageous. The International Criminal Court issued warrants yesterday for Netanyahu and his former Defense Secretary Yoav Gallant, accusing them of war crimes in the Gaza Strip. By the way, an arrest warrant was also issued for a Hamas commander for crimes against humanity, including murder and torture. President Biden yesterday defended Netanyahu, saying we will always stand with Israel against threats to its security.
One thing I would say about that is that many are talking about the fact that Netanyahu's travel will be impinged upon because of this. And this is true, I suppose. But beyond that, Israel's ability to get certain armaments and certain help from the international community, that will be impinged upon because there are certain restrictions on interactions with states that have been called out by the international court. And so the devil is a bit in the details, but it's very possible that beyond just Netanyahu, that the state of Israel could run afoul of the court to the point, as they have, that they're called out, and now the degree to which they can get support from many of the nations that are already supporting them may be affected. So again, that's a developing part of that story.
Well, they're getting on the Jesus train in Texas. The Texas State Board of Education has approved a curriculum for public schools that leans heavily on stories from the Bible. This narrow vote came despite opposition from some on the board who felt it violated the separation of church and state. Board member Stacy Childs warned before the vote it'll open the state up to lawsuits. The curriculum is not mandatory, but districts that use the materials will get extra funding from the state.
Wow, how about that?
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Yeah, read some of that. Man, that's a...
Praise the Lord and pass the ammo. Los Angeles
See,
Department of Water.
Obama would love to be the Antichrist.
No, I forgot about that.
Is that right? The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power is agreeing to a $60 million settlement with Sun Valley residents after more than 1,200 residents were sickened from exposure to a toxic gas leak at the Sun Valley generating station. A lawsuit says the LADWP endangered the largely Black and Latino populations of Sun Valley and Pacoima by failing to prevent methane gas leaks for years. Residents exposed to toxic fumes reported chronic headaches, bloody noses, shortness of breath, nausea, and even more health issues.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
It's not the Asian community. It's the Black and Latino community primarily.
$60 million enough? I don't think so.
Probably not. I mean, it was, these settlements, and then the lawyers get a big chunk of that, right?
It's going to soon be illegal for pet stores across the state of New York to sell certain animals. Starting December 15th, licensed pet retailers with storefronts will not be allowed to sell dogs, cats, or rabbits. The ban aimed at stopping large-scale breeding operations known as puppy mills. Former NFL star Jason Kelce getting his own late-night talk show on ESPN. Hey, if Jason Kelce can get a talk show, a late-night talk show, what's going on with Mark Thompson?
Yeah, right.
Who is having that conversation?
Yeah, I don't necessarily see the two as related, but all right, I get it. Okay, yeah.
The show will be called They Call It Late Night with Jason Kelce.
Oh.
It debuts January 4th at 1 a.m. Eastern on the Sports Network. The show will feature comedy, guests, music, while being filmed before a studio audience in Philadelphia. So in Eagles home territory.
Sure.
It'll air for 5 consecutive weeks through the NFL playoffs. Kelce signed a multi-year deal with ESPN earlier this year following his retirement from football and has been serving as an analyst on the Monday Night Countdown.
Wow, that's a pretty big deal.
That's not fake. That's real.
No, that's a real thing. It's late at night, though, 1 a.m. I guess it doesn't matter. People watch these things on demand. But
Sure. I know RFK Jr. is not about the processed food, but apparently America doesn't care. Fans of McDonald's McRib will soon be able to buy a jug of the sauce used on this sandwich.
I've never seen anything like it.
A whole jug coming to your house. McDonald's will start selling a whole lot of McRib sauce jugs online. They go on sale Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern, so mark your calendars. The jugs will cost about $20. It's the first time ever that McDonald's is offering this super secret sauce for sale. The release is to mark the return of the popular limited time item on December 3rd. So
feels great, baby. Yeah, I'm loving that. Look at that, a big jug of sauce. Who doesn't like a big jug? It should be called Big Jug of Sauce.
I mean,
McRib sauce will be available to the public. Wow.
Yeah.
What a great way to usher in the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if RFK Jr. will put a stop to that.
Yeah, I don't think I think RFK Jr. is going to be surprised he can't put a stop to much when it comes to the I think the Americans kind of like their junk food, and we don't want to be told don't eat it.
What can you tell us about the scene?
The scene is full of a jug of McRib sauce, Larry. I don't think RFK Jr. can even.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Yeah. Stuff it in your face. Put it all over everything.
This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. And we've got some great deals at Tenuta Vineyards.
Mark Thompson, Kim, Albert, and Tony, and all the Mark Thompson listeners out there. November, Black Friday happens in November, but you know what? Black Friday is going to be all month long. So yes, if you say smash it with your iron rod, you get that 10% discount. But if you order 6 bottles, you get 20%. If you order a full case, you get 30%.
What?
So how about that for some savings? And Thanksgiving is just around the corner. So call me, 925-699-4576. Check out our website at www.tenutawinery.com. Nancy has 30 selections of wine, 12 whites and 18 reds, which is unheard of. Two of which are the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red Blend the Mark Thompson, hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson's Pinot Grigio? So load up for Thanksgiving. I know you have the holidays.
Which one do you use, Mark?
So you probably have family and friends. If you live local, we're open Thanksgiving week and day. Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. So come on out and say hi. And if you don't live local, we can ship. So just give me a call, 925-699-4576, and we hope to see you out here tonight. And happy holidays, you guys.
And be willing to lunch that there's alcohol involved.
There is alcohol involved. That's terrific. Love our Tenuta Vineyard. Tenuta, for those who are just listening. Check them out and use our phrase that pays, which is smash it with your iron rod.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Good stuff.
And before I sign off and turn it over to Michael Snyder.
Michael wants as many stories as you can possibly pack in more before he comes on.
I want you to know that it is Michael Snyder's birthday.
It is. The Culture Blaster.
I have a special video to celebrate Michael Snyder's birthday.
All right.
Are you ready for it?
Let's go.
Okay.
You requested a happy birthday song, so I'm going to give you one. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
Right on. I love that.
There you go.
Michael, that's how you know who that is.
No idea, but I will say this. It's another Mark Thompson time waster.
How dare you say that? How dare you say that?
No, I'm
Kim's son.
I know, I'm flattered. I am. I just, you know.
I got to say this, too, about Kim's son. How old is he, 11 or something?
10. He's 10, yeah.
He's 10 years old. He looks like he's going to be a handsome kid who can play guitar. He's gonna. I hope he doesn't Matt Gates on everybody. You know what I mean? He's got
don't
that.
Say that. No,
I know, but I'm worried about him. I don't know.
Raising
That kid...
him to be a good young man.
All right, I hope so. Jacob. Yeah.
Jacob.
You call him Jake or Jacob?
Both.
Both.
I want to thank Jake and Jacob and Kim for arranging that. All three of you, and of course the ukulele.
I thought that was really great. Yeah. Really, really cool. That kid is a real threat. I mean, he's got real talent. I love it. Good stuff. Thank you, Kim.
You bet. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you all for being here. It is I'm going to tell the studio audience that you're going to be here a little bit longer because we've got the great Culture Blaster coming up. I do have an angry email from Sheila, and Sheila's my favorite. When I see that Sheila has sent me an email, I just smile with the grin that only can compare to Christmas morning. That's right. Sheila has sent me an email. It just came in. And always her subject lines will whip your head around. In this case, the subject line is, "Grow up, Mark." So I know it's something good coming. So let me just quickly read it. Culture Blaster, is that okay with you? Yeah, I know you have no problem with it. Culture Blaster, stand by. Sheila Gonzalez says, "Okay, smart boy Mark, you keep saying VP Harris wasn't the best candidate. Then who is? Not only was she the best, she was the most qualified in capital letters. Mark, you were too much into celebrities because that's the life you're in. That's why you're so infatuated with Trump. You're just not used to a real person. If you don't like her, you just don't like her. But Kamala Harris is and was the best person for the job." That's all in capital letters. In other words, she was just too real for you, Mark, and those just like you. Grow the hell up, America, and face the truth, she says.
Why are you yelling?
She says it in capital letters. That's why I'm yelling. It all boils down to racism, she says. Well, this is a to-be continued email, if I can say that, Sheila, because I feel there's a lot here. And I will get to it next week. Now, Teacher Lori says, "Wow, such a long time since we're going to Michael Snyder. Don't feel like retyping my comments meant for his segment." Wow. Now I'm getting static for making you wait so long, Michael Snyder, and I really apologize.
I wish I could say something, but hey, it's the top of the hour, everybody, and you know what that means.
All right.
Can you let him finish, sir?
I'm finished. All right. Sheila does need a hug. I love my Sheila, and I had to get that in. Now, without any further delay, although it's so much fun to delay, and particularly when it's Michael Snyder, he really endures the delay so well.
This is a classic Mark Thompson time waster.
Please welcome him on his birthday. It doesn't matter what big movie, small movie, streaming film, television is offered, the Culture Blaster reviews it with the same objectivity and depth that he does all others. He comes and goes on a rainbow. How about it for the great Michael Snyder? Happy birthday.
Thank you. You've had your castor oil, and now it's time for a croissant with a little bit of marmalade, with a little bit of confiture. You know, it is my birthday. All I want for my birthday is an exhaustive forensic swing state recount, a Niners Super Bowl win, and a couple pairs of socks. But I will accept every one of Trumpy's nominees being shot down. That would be okay. A Niners victory over the Packers on Sunday, and socks, of course.
Trevor Starr in Hollywood says, happy birthday, Michael Snyder. Hope this year brings you countless Mark Thompson time wasters.
Boy,
yeah.
Haven't we had enough?
Luis says, happy birthday to the Culture Blaster.
What a bounty.
Viva la vida, my friend, he says.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have said this earlier. Next week, I will be in on Wednesday, and then it'll be followed by a holiday horror double feature, Dark Thanksgiving and Black Friday, starring Mark Thompson and the crew. Nobody will be
here
streaming at that point. But before we get to our reviews, one more quick note. I'm pretty pleased that the Senate shut the gates on Farhead McPedo as Attorney General, but now we have to deal with Pam Toady, and then there's Dr. Oz. And speaking of Oz, here's my segue. Wicked has opened. That's right.
How about that?
You know, Hollywood loves a road-tested vehicle, so to speak, meaning a previously successful narrative property that can be adapted, remade, repurposed, sequelized, or prequelized. As far as the suits are concerned, it's a low-risk, high-reward situation. Even if such a project goes into production and the budget swells to massive proportions, like I think it did here, Universal had to be all in for Wicked, which is the studio's movie version of the successful musical of the same name that was an adaptation of a book that was a prequel to the beloved L. Frank Baum fantasy novel, The Wizard of Oz, which, of course, was turned into one of the most enduring movie musicals of all time. Geez, I wonder if this story will work. Anyway, you remember the original film musical, the one with all those classic songs such as Ding Dong the Witches, Smushed by Dorothy Gale's Farmhouse, Don't Eat the Yellow Brick Snow, and of course, I'm Over the Rainbow that I come and go on. That's my favorite of all of them. Anyway, Wicked tells the story of how prissy, pink-obsessed blonde Galinda, who became Glinda, the Good Witch of Oz, met and became frenemies, then friends with green-skinned, black-clad Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, when they were at the Land of Oz's premier bastion of higher education, Shiz University. Well, what does that even mean, Shiz?
I don't know.
Anyway, also how they eventually ended up as the famous adversaries of The Wizard of Oz. The original Broadway production reinforced the musical comedy bona fides and star power of Kristen Chenoweth, who played Galinda, and Idina Menzel, you know, Adele Dazeem herself.
Yeah, Adele Dazeem, sure.
Who played Elphaba. As for the movie version, the casting people deserve major kudos for securing the mega-cute pop superstar Ariana Grande as Galinda and the versatile Tony-winning actress and roof-racing singer Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba. Dude, Erivo seems like a shoo-in for an Oscar nomination. This is...
Wow.
Massively powerful. Anyway, the rest of the most significant players are pretty damn good, too. How about Michelle Yeoh as Elphaba's magic mentor at Shiz U, Madame Morrible, or Jeff Goldblum in full amoral mode as the manipulative Wizard of Oz himself, straight on the heels of him playing Zeus in that wonderful Netflix series Chaos. Jonathan Bailey is here as pretty boy love interest Prince Fiero. It should be noted that the movie is populated by a relentlessly inclusive cast. It is a veritable rainbow connection. I can already hear the dissenters, go woke, go broke. No, they're not going to go broke with this thing.
Veritable is a ding word.
Elphaba's non-green sister is differently abled, if you will.
I see.
As in a wheelchair. Bowen Yang, who I gotta say has shown very little range over the course of his TV and film work, plays the gay Asian member of Glinda's popular clique. What a stretch for Bowen. That's what I call a stretch. With all this diversity, there didn't seem to be any little people portraying the Munchkins, just short people. On the other hand, Peter Dinklage voices a goat who was a venerable professor at Shiz U and gives a very moving voice performance. And there are a lot of monkeys, flying and otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is Wicked the movie any good?
Venerable is a ding word. Yeah.
It's a little bloated at 2 hours and 40 minutes long, and it sometimes feels it. The script by Winnie...
It's 2 hours and 20 minutes?
40 minutes long.
Oh, my God.
Wait. The script by Winnie Halsman and Dana Fox ranges from sharp to perfunctory, but this movie looks spectacular. To put it bluntly, the art direction and costuming are stunning and should clean up at the Oscars, the Golden Globes, the BAFTAs. While the story keeps focus on the core relationship between Glinda and Elphaba, director John M. Chu, the guy who directed Crazy Rich Asians and the movie musical of In the Heights, he doesn't stint on the epic sweep of the fantasy, and he managed to hold my attention despite the length. And a lot of that can be credited to the skill and charisma displayed by Grande and Arrivo. For the record, none of the famous Wizard of Oz songs are used in Wicked, which is okay because the latter has at least 2 serious showstoppers. Glinda Ariana's Popular and Elphaba Cynthia's Climactic Defying Gravity.
So just to be clear, you're saying none of the original songs from the original movie,
Wizard of Oz movie,
but
yes.
Wicked, the Wicked songs are all there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, did I mention that it's 2 hours and 40 minutes long?
I mean, are you going to get kids to sit through 2 hours and 40 minutes?
I did mention it, but I didn't say that it's just part 1. With a to be continued tag. And
Are you essing me?
I am not.
Crazy.
And part 2 won't be released until November 21st of next year. Seriously.
Wow.
In the meantime, Universal's pulled out all the promotional stops with a hankering to kind of generate a Barbie-style phenomenon. I guess we're going to see how the dolls and Happy Meals sell and how it does at the box office. Regardless of my caveats, I expect big numbers. Yeah, I was sort of won over by the sheer...
Yeah, look at you. Your heart, like the Grinch's, has now swelled 3 times its size.
It was great.
Not really. That sounds like something that I have to talk to my cardiologist about. But no, it's in theaters.
Dinklage is not a ding word, Phineas. No. But you really have been swept up in wickedness. I'm really surprised.
I was swept up, but I have issues. It's overstuffed, it's very long, and it's only the first half of the story.
Right. But I mean, it must be a good story for a two-parter, says Calvin. Yeah.
Well,
I don't. What is left? What's left? Is there a cliffhanger? Just tell us
there
that.
is a cliffhanger because there is a sea change in the relationship between the now Glinda and Elphaba. And I want to be clear about this. It is ending where the intermission in the play is. So it's 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it's literally the first half of the stage play.
Did you see the play?
I did not, but I also want to point out that there are things that are expanded upon that I think visually for a movie are good. The very beginning of the play, as I understand it, begins with the death of the Wicked Witch of the West and the celebration in Munchkinland. And Glinda shows up as she does in the movie.
Right.
And a Munchkin asks her, "Did you know the Wicked Witch?" And that spins the story. In the movie, we actually see the aftermath of Dorothy tossing water. So there's a visual kind of delivery of what happens in The Wizard of Oz with the death of the Wicked Witch. And it's beautifully visualized, but it also expands the length of the story by doing things like that, by lingering over some of these magnificent CGI vistas that they're beautiful. And there's a lot of practical stuff here, steampunky, bursting with color. You know, I had issues. I had issues.
Is it going to make me cry, Michael?
I don't think so.
You know, are there no weepy moments?
There was a moment for me, and I don't want to spoil it, but two actors show up. You can kind of guess who they are, and I went like, "Oh, that's so sweet." Anyway, let's move on.
Can we move on? That's wicked.
It is. Speaking of intellectual property that passes the proof of concept test, director Ridley Scott has returned to the scene of his Academy Award-winning year 2000 epic Gladiator.
Now, I hope this is 2 hours and 40 minutes because I love this Gladiator
Well,
stuff.
We're back in ancient Rome, or a hyperbolic widescreen version of ancient Rome.
Hyperbolic.
The result of this return, creatively dubbed Gladiator 2, of course, with a Roman numeral 2, is well-crafted silliness. I mean, a sword and sandals sequel that turns up the heat from its predecessor, continuing the story years after Gladiator star Russell Crowe's warrior character Maximus meets his noble end, but jacking up the action and computer-generated battles in the arena and beyond. There is a lot of computer-generated beasties that they have to fight off. And whatever.
Wow. By the way, let me just give you a little credit on your birthday.
Yeah.
Sword and Sandal sequel.
Yeah, well.
Very strong. I really, you're a writer. You're a writer.
Yeah, dude, what can I tell you?
All right, go ahead.
This stuff just kind of pops out. So
they're fighting a lot of these big creatures.
CGI creatures, and they're fighting one another in the Coliseum.
Sure.
So how do we get there? Rising star and award season favorite Paul Mescal plays the central role of Lucius, who has a connection to Maximus, the Russell Crowe character, and who was exiled as a boy to North Africa, where he grew into a Maximus-style warrior.
I see.
Now his chosen home is being invaded and annexed by the Roman Empire, and in short order, Lucius is rounded up, brought to Rome, and forced to fight in the Colosseum for his honor. And, presumably...
He doesn't get any land back, or
I think he wants to restore the glory of Rome. I don't know what he wants.
Right,
he wants honors. Anyway... Rome has been kind of undermined by its current corrupt, perverse rulers, whacked out twin emperors. Although Gladiator 2 left Crowe's Maximus character in the cinematic and chronological past, Connie Nielsen's Lucilla from the first movie, daughter of the late Emperor Marcus Aurelius and Maximus's lover, is back, as is Derek Jacobi's elderly Senator Gracchus, an ally to Maximus and Lucilla, and a keeper of secrets. Plus, you get a swaggering Denzel Washington as a powerful former slave who mentors Lucius as one of his gladiator troops, and meanwhile is jockeying for control of Rome. He wants to be the power behind the throne. So Washington he dominates every scene he's in. Furthermore, you get Pedro Pascal as a Roman general in a relationship with Lucilla that will bring him into conflict with Lucius, and Joseph Quinn, who coincidentally is Pedro Pascal's co-star in the upcoming Marvel Fantastic Four film, plays one of the twisted co-emperors of Rome. So solid cast. Now, a lot of these characters are based on historical figures, but I do not vouch for the veracity of the portrayals. There's some pretty over-the-top stuff going on here. There is a lot of sound and fury and not that much substance. I will just say that I enjoyed my encounter with Gladiator 2 while I was there in the middle of it, but I didn't respect it when it was over. Very much like some relationships I was in. Anyway, Gladiator 2 is in theaters. If this is your thing, you'll enjoy it, but it's not earth-shaking, and it's not up to the first film.
How long is it, Michael? Roughly 2 hours?
2 hours and 28 minutes, my brother.
Thank you.
10 minutes shorter than part one of Wicked for those keeping score.
What else do you have for us?
Well, I had the fortune to see Blitz. Finally, it opened in theaters a week or so ago, and I didn't have an opportunity to review it, but it dropped today, I believe, on Apple TV.
Yeah.
And it is the work of the decorated screenwriter and director Steve McQueen, not the actor. This is a black British guy, Steve McQueen. And this is about a young boy, a 9-year-old, during World War II, who lives in London with his mom and his grandfather. He is of mixed race. The kid, George, is played by a wonderful child actor named Elliot Heffernan. And mom, Rita, is played by Saoirse Ronan, who never gives a bad performance. She's one of our jewels in terms of young actresses on their way to eternity. Anyway, she follows the dictates of the government and prepares to send him to the countryside for his safety while staying behind and working for the war effort at a factory. But George does not want to be separated from his mother. I mean, his father is already not in the picture. And Grandpa, Gerald, who in an amazing piece of casting, is played by the Jam's Paul Weller, the great new wave singer, songwriter, guitarist Paul Weller, who is showing his age, but is quite believable as Grandpa Gerald. He's not crazy about the kid going away either. They live in East London. So this is all about young George's attempt to get back to his mom, also about how things are on the home front in the middle of the horrific blitzkrieg, the blitz that decimated parts of London and endangered lives everywhere, forcing people to hide out in the subways and underground stations. And, it's powerful in that regard. The episodes of the movie and the journey that George takes carry you along. It's beautifully rendered. I thought it was excellent. And I thought it's available.
Now, let me just understand something from a plot standpoint. So George, she has to give him up because it's getting too dangerous?
She sends him away as children were sent away during the Blitz.
Sure, of course.
Into the countryside where they would be safe, where the Germans were not bombing.
Right.
But George doesn't want to be separated from her, and halfway on his way to wherever in the countryside, he jumps off the train.
Okay.
And this is all about his journey back and also about what she's dealing with back home as this war has changed everyone's lives in London and made it unsafe. And
you really liked it.
I thought it was really well done.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I love it when you love it.
I did. And here's something I was favorably disposed toward as well. While Denzel Washington was busy swinging his big sword and flinging highfalutin epithets in Gladiator 2, his sons, actor John David Washington and director-screenwriter Malcolm Washington, were up to something far more intriguing, a well-wrought adaptation of playwright August Wilson's award-winning family drama with a touch of religious fervor and supernatural hijinks, The Piano Lesson. It is very theatrical, with John David Washington's lead performance as the canny, striving boy Willie Charles.
Now, what does that mean, very theatrical?
Well, because it's a broad role and it's played in broad terms. He's on screen, and it's a different kind of acting, and he takes it to the sort of boldness of a live performance.
I see.
So at times, it's a little jarring, but basically the story is it's the mid-30s, people are coming out of the Great Depression, and there's been a black migration north out of the slave states, and the Charles family is kind of broken up, and Doker Charles has a house in Pittsburgh. He's played by Samuel L. Jackson, and he has his niece, who is the sister of Boy Willie, and she's played in beautiful form by Danielle Deadweiler, Bernice, and Bernice has her daughter, and they're living with Doker, and suddenly who shows up but bad boy Willie and his best buddy Lyman, played by Ray Fisher, and they are up in Pittsburgh with a truck full of watermelons that they're selling to generate money because Boy Willie wants to take over the property back home that was once the province of a white bad man, a white guy who was not particularly kind to the black locals, and apparently fell down a well and died, as did so many other kind of rather nasty white people in the community. So is there something afoot? Are local black people getting revenge? Boy Willie says it's a ghost of some sort that's actually visiting death upon these bad people, and he wants to accumulate as much money as possible and buy that land. And the way he thinks he can do it is by taking the piano, the heirloom piano that's been in their family for a number of years, and selling it, and then I'll have enough money along with the sale of the watermelons and such to purchase this land and take it over from this bad person who has died. But kind of the spirit of that guy has lingered in their hearts and minds, and things get kind of freaky deaky. I thought this was pretty damn good.
Wow.
And the heirloom piano becomes sort of the MacGuffin that they're all kind of
Well, there's something
tussling
burning
over.
in the, it looks like a piano in the field. Here in the picture that I'm looking at.
Well, that's what we call symbolism, Mark.
I see. Symbolism, of course. I've heard about it.
Anyway, it's been called by some as Southern Gothic, and it's hyped up, and I didn't think it was as good a film as Blitz, but I thought it was pretty damn good, and it's on Netflix, man.
Such a good play, Murphy says. And sounds like a stolen script, says Juan.
Stolen script. Well, not really. It's an
there's some
adaptation.
Themes. Yeah, there's some themes that are running through it.
But no, August Wilson has written a number of plays in what they call his Pittsburgh plays, and this is the penultimate one, maybe. I don't know. Erykah Badu does a brief stint as a singer in here, so you get a little music. She's wonderful. Yeah. Quickly, just to wrap things up,
yes, please.
2 more things on Netflix. One is called Joy, and it's based on a true story, really a true story. It's the backstory behind the birth of the first test tube baby. In other words, the origins of in vitro fertilization. And no, your king maggot, Donny Boy, did not create IVF, despite what he said in one of his patented rants on the campaign trail this year. So Joy has a few tedious moments that reflect the painstaking and fruitless years of lab work that preceded the ultimate breakthrough. But the 3 main actors in this movie, who are, by the way, first rate, and they would be the great Bill Nighy, the great British character actor and character lead, playing Patrick Steptoe, a researcher and surgeon. James Norton, also a scientific guy. Robert Edwards is his role. And the very talented young Thomasin McKenzie, who was so good in Last Night in Soho. She plays Jean Purdy, their assistant, who becomes very deeply involved in caring for the women who are trying to realize their dream of giving birth. The actors are so good, it's not too tough to tag along with them during their research and watch their relationships with one another and with the childless women who sought their help, and the latter relationships quite poignant at times. It's instructive. It's pretty, it gets dry at times, but again, you're carried along by the performances. Joy, again, available on Netflix.
All right.
And directed by Ben Taylor and written by Jack Thorne and based on true stuff. And I will just say, in brief, Spellbound, which is a new animated feature also on Netflix, and Something Good for the Kids, didn't really knock me out. It's not the classic 1945 Alfred Hitchcock psychodrama of the same name, but it's an animated feature from Skydance that's getting its direct-to-Netflix premiere. And the pedigrees on display are impressive, and the message is honorable, but the result is kind of pedestrian. And oh, the talent. First off, the director, Vicky Jensen, was the co-director of Shrek. One of the producers is former Pixar head John Lasseter, kind of disgraced in the Me Too aftermath, but he's on board here. And here's the cast. The lead, Princess Elian, a young girl who's dealing with the fact that her parents, the king and queen of their kingdom, have turned into monsters, is voiced by Rachel Zegler, one of the stars of West Side Story, Spielberg's West Side Story. Jennifer Lewis plays one of her advisors. Believe it or not, John Lithgow is the other advisor and a comic treasure. And Mom and Dad are voiced by Javier Bardem and Nicole Kidman, and the songs are by Alan Menken of Disney's.
Wow, there's a lot of
Beauty
good
and the
pedigree
Beast.
there.
Yeah, but it's just not great.
Doesn't hang together. Michael says, Spellbound, the kids offering for Netflix, great pedigree, amazing people involved, but it just doesn't all come together to make it on the 10 scale, but not bad. But he doesn't hate it. But he just
not
thinks
great.
It didn't. Yeah. Joy, which is also on Netflix, based on a true story, the backstory of the test tube baby, the birth of IVF. Bill Nighy, no, it is not Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill Nighy, the brilliant British character actor, stars beside James Norton and Thomasin McKenzie. Yes, Michael says it's a winner. Joy on Netflix, based on a true story.
It's good.
Yeah. The Piano Lesson, the John David Washington, son of Denzel Washington, offering. 1930s America. Samuel L. Jackson's in it. Danielle Detweiler. Ray Fisher. The piano is to be sold for the purchase of the land as this family tries to claw back what was taken from them.
Well, yeah, Boy Willie does. Mom is the mother. His sister is perfectly content to stay with her piano in Pittsburgh. There is conflict.
So Boy Willie wants to claw it back. All right. The Piano Lesson is in theaters. Blitz is the Saoirse Ronan offering. Paul Weller's in it in kind of an odd casting decision.
He's grandfather.
Yeah. George's efforts to get back to his mom amidst the blitzkrieg.
Right.
It's all there. He likes it a lot.
Very much. And it's on Apple TV. And by the way, The Piano Lesson is on Netflix. 3 Netflix movies that you can access.
Great. Yeah, Spellbound, Joy, and The Piano Lesson. Didn't realize it was on Netflix. Thank you. And Blitz is on Apple TV.
Yeah.
Gladiator 2. I couldn't get enough of Gladiator 1. Bring me a Gladiator 2, I screamed as I left the theater. I remember clearly.
It's okay.
I love that. Ridley Scott.
It's
the
okay.
massive brilliance of ancient Rome.
Well, yeah.
This one, Michael said, is there's a lot here. There's a lot of character-generated stuff, some good action sequences.
It's entertaining,
yeah,
but it's not greatness.
Grab your popcorn, but don't expect it to be like Gladiator 1.
No, it's not as good as Gladiator 1.
And finally, and firstly, we started with Wicked. Wicked, the reimagined story that's based on the wildly successful stage show. Wicked, the stage show, which was based on the wildly successful book, and the book, which was based on the wildly successful movie, which was based on the wildly successful Frank L.
You
Baum
actually nailed that. You didn't remember that The Piano Lesson
you.
is on Netflix, but
Thank
that
you.
you got.
Thank you.
Bravo.
I got it. For your birthday, I like to step up in one instance.
I appreciate it.
He said it's overstuffed, 2 hours and 40 minutes, but there's a lot here. And if you're, a Wickeder, and if you're, you like the music and terrific depictions of scenery enhanced by computer graphics, obviously, and animation, it's pretty spectacular. It's just that it's long and it's not the whole story.
It's only half the story, but oh my God, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are absolutely wonderful. They are a reason to watch this thing.
You have really served it up on your birthday, Culture Blaster.
Well, thank you, Mark.
I want to encourage everyone to read the Culture Blaster at thevoicesf.org. If you think you like Michael Snyder here, you will adore him in his written word. He writes like the Shakespeare of his generation.
Please spare me.
When it comes to culture. How dare you interrupt me when I'm trying to pay you a compliment?
I don't know.
Oh, my God.
Can you let him finish, sir?
It's like
the
foo-fra.
point I'm trying to make is you should regale yourself and immerse yourself in the magic of Michael Snyder on his birthday. TheVoiceSF.org. Michael, closing comments on your birthday?
I want to thank the audience who's been so wonderful to check in with us. And I look forward to next Wednesday when we look at the Thanksgiving weekend.
Yes, you'll be here
slate
Wednesday instead of Friday because we won't have any show Friday. So it'll be Wednesday that Michael will join us, and he will come and go as he does today on a rainbow. Bye-bye, Michael.
Go 49ers and Dubs.
Wow. Albert,
The Mark Thompson Show.
What can I say, Albert? It has been one of those shows where it's gone on a little long, and I don't know what to say.
I blame you.
Yeah, it probably is my fault. I think, we get talking, and before you know it, the time has passed. Blue Spark with a $20 super chat on the way out here. Let's catch up. A modest token of repentance. I think repentance is a dang word, don't you think? Yeah. Mm-hmm. For a spectacularly misunderstood post yesterday. I'm sorry I was wrong, et cetera, et cetera. Did you know
I don't remember the post that was the offending post.
No.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
The Blue Spark has apologized.
Enough for him to kick down $20. So
yeah,
wow.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Look, all I'll say is you're forgiven.
Nice apology.
I'm always $20 away from forgiving somebody. Peter Newton says, did you catch the Daily Beast on MSNBC's 11th hour last night? Interesting take on Trump versus Biden prep for the first debate. No, I didn't see it. I will check it out. Thank you, Peter. I didn't see it. Why, America, did you elect the Joker for president? Yeah, well, I mean, that's from Asbjorn in Norway. Look, we go over and over why it happened and what happened with the election. I don't know what to quite what to say. America is a place that even us Americans are it's a place that we are discovering in ways that we just weren't aware in times past. All right, in the next half hour, I'd like to I'm kidding. Michael, it was great to have you in on your birthday. That was really special today.
Well, I'm glad to have been here. And again, thanks to Kim for Jacob's tune, which was heartfelt and embraced in the manner in which it was given.
Yeah. I absolutely love your son. I think he's super talented. And I intend to emancipate him from that house.
What?
I am going to get his emancipated minor status done by the time he is 12.
Wow.
Get him out of that scene. You know what I mean, Albert? Get him out of that McAllister scene. Maybe send him over to Lucy McAllister's house so that he can keep his last name. I have a whole future plan for Jacob. Yeah. He is a talented
kid. You take my dignity, now you take my children.
Get nothing.
Kim, how are you?
All right, so Kim is doing her after party thing. She's been good enough to hang here. It is called after party. I mean, you can't start it while this show's going on. You got to wait. I mean, otherwise, you change the name of the show.
I know.
Everybody have a great weekend. We'll have a show for you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, dark, Thursday, and Friday. But as we say here,
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
We're out of time. Have a great weekend.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
As we say here, bye-bye. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everyone.